I learned about The Ferryman by Justin Cronin when I did an episode on what appeared to be the most popular science fiction and fantasy books of 2023. You can find that episode here on the channel. I was trying to determine which of these books maybe I would want to read still. This one made the cut. Now that I've read it, did I waste my time or what? Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father, me, Jim, and a son, Zach, not here today, talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. Today, I'm coming to you with a quick take episode on The Ferryman by Justin Cronin, a book I've recently read. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to hit the like button there and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so. I'm going to be talking both spoiler-lite and then definitely spoilers in this episode. There'll be a difference, so if you haven't read the book yet, you're fine. Stick around, but I'll let you know when it's time to jump out because I'm going to ruin the book for those of you that haven't read it yet if you stay too long. But some of you have read this book and you want to know my thoughts, so there's a section, the second half of the episode, where you get to hear all about the good stuff. So just be aware, and I will let you know the difference. Oh my goodness, I did not waste my time with Justin Cronin's The Ferryman. This was an excellent read, and while I'd say it was just slightly outside my wheelhouse for the types of books that I usually read, that's only barely the case. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Its mystery, its intrigue, its science fiction elements, its high stakes, and its slow reveals. All around, this is a very well-written, carefully thought-out, suspenseful sci-fi action thriller. I would strongly recommend this book to pretty much anyone. I'm going to take some time now to discuss the premise of the book, again staying spoiler light. I'll warn you when we get spoiler heavy. Everyone's still safe here. The premise of the story. We're at a world where there are haves and have-lesses. It's not that they have not, just there is a clear upper class and a lower class, and no way to cross between the lines. This is a world we recognize, and yet not. I mean, it looks like what we think we know of in our world, but still, there's some issues here. And the story begins with no explanation of how this place that is like us but not like us came to be. It just kind of tosses you in. So first off, we meet the people of the island of Prospera. The residents of Prospera are the rich and famous, the successful business folk, the upper white-collar crowd, the country club and art scene folks, doctors, lawyers, politicians, you know the type. These are the people we know of who have considerable disposable income. And for reasons not initially explained, they all live in extremely good health. And for a long, long, long time. I mean, that health does not seem to diminish. They stay amazingly young and vibrant. Next door to Prospera is the Annex, another island which is connected to Prospera by a causeway. The Annex is the home of the menial workers, all those who toil in the necessary support roles that any society needs addressed. In fact, the people of Prospera refer to them as the support staff. We're talking about landscapers, sanitation and sewer workers, housemaids and cooks. These include the waitstaff at restaurants, the servants at the country club, the clerks at the stores. They come over to Prospera each day, do their jobs, and go home. And they make peanuts for what they do. The Annex is basically a slum. I mean, conditions for most people aren't horrible, but it certainly isn't great. No one has any more than just what they need. They're familiar with being hungry. They're familiar with not having the opportunity to access the things they'd like to get. Likewise, that long life and great health known on Prospera, yeah, they don't get any of that on the Annex. But one other key mysterious difference exists between the two islands. On the Annex, people marry, have children, age, eventually die. Just kind of have your normal life. On Prospera, very different. No one typically dies. Rather, when they get old enough, and we're talking quite old usually, so old that they start to finally feel the age or the mental acuity starts slipping, these people will choose to retire. Of course, there's also societal pressure to retire in a timely manner. If you become a burden on others around you, the government can actually force mandatory retirement, which is not a pleasant thing. We don't want to go there. So, those retiring actually get on a ferry, a boat. This is a special automated weekly ferry that takes people from the island of Prospera and travels to the third island of our story called the nursery. No one knows exactly what happens over on the nursery. They just know the result. You leave as an old person, and after a time, you return young again. A healthy and vibrant young person, a teenager with no memory of your former life. You basically have been reset and you get to start fresh. You get to live a life all over again, not burdened by all of the recollections of what you did the last time around. It's just a restart. And for this reason, no one on Prospera actually gives natural birth to children. Rather, when a couple has, formed by, they sign contracts for a period of time to couple, to become husband and wife. And then when they decide they'd like to have a child, they sign up to accept a ward. And eventually, one of these returning young people will be assigned to them as their ward, becomes their child. And you're now known as mom and dad. Okay, so this is all sort of weird and perhaps wrong. And coming to understand this is all what happens for the foundation of the book. Now, what happens through the narrative of the story is built off of this foundation, this understanding that you've come to develop. And I'm going to discuss the highlights and the major themes next of where the book takes us. So that's spoilery. This is the point where if you haven't read the book, you're going to want to leave. I've given you a taste of what happens, the setup of this book, and clearly something's going to happen built on the oddness of these three islands and the way they are arranged. And it's really worth reading. It's fascinating when you come to discover the conflicts that arise and where it ends up. It's like, whoa. Remember, it's science fiction. There's some cool stuff to discover. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm going to talk about the deep stuff now. So thanks for being here. But if you haven't read it, bye-bye. So there was a great opening scene in the book where we learned right off the bat that something is rotten in the state of Denmark as we witness the suicide of one of the Prosperans. She rows out in a little dinghy in the middle of the night, grabs the anchor in her arms, and jumps overboard with it. Now, this is a happily partnered woman. She's leaving behind her husband. She's leaving behind their ward. She's going because she's been around a long time and she's noticed she's starting to slip. It's becoming obvious to people she's aging. So, time to go. But she's not getting on the ferry. She's not going to the nursery. She goes overboard. What the heck? Now, we get some of her thoughts. We're in her POV, so we know this is an intentional choice. She does not want to go to the nursery. After this opener, we do a time jump, and we discover that the primary protagonist for the rest of the story is going to be Proctor Bennett, who was the ward, that young son of the woman who committed suicide years previous. Author Justin Cronin does a terrific job of having us then follow Proctor's POV of discovery that something really isn't right with this world. And the catalyzing event to trigger all of this is using his father. Proctor's father now is at the point where he's going to depart on the ferry. He's going to head to the nursery. Proctor serves professionally as something called a ferryman, meaning he's one of those responsible for escorting retirees peacefully and smoothly to the ferry to get on the boat and head off to the nursery. This is a challenging time when someone has decided this. They're basically saying goodbye to this life and they're going to something unknown, knowing they're going to come back but not remember anything. So retirees can have second thoughts. They can get nervous. They can try to back out. Ferrymen work hard to keep things going as planned, to keep them focused on the prize, keep everything calm and positive and focused on a better future. For some reason, Proctor actually gets assigned to handle his dad's retirement. And despite his efforts to make this a positive and smooth experience for his father, something goes quite wrong right at the end. And the event that happens catalyzes a series of escalating events then that end up to revealing, well, basically reveal after reveal after reveal. And we're going to get down to what's really happening here on Prospera, on the Annex, and the nursery, all because of what happens right here with his dad. The revelations, deliciously shocking. Proctor Bennett, though, isn't the only POV character. He's just the primary one, and there's a reason for that you'll learn eventually. Through other POVs, though, we get to actually and eventually see things from the perspectives of a resistance movement, from the eyes of officials who are trying to maintain order, and even from people who have an agenda that's very different from what's supposed to be happening here on Prospera. Cronin's design of the narrative, the reveals that come out in fits and starts, and the eventual conclusion, all masterful and highly satisfying. Cronin is making numerous thematic statements in this novel that I appreciated. First, he's talking about humanity's negative impact on the environment. He's speaking about society's inequities that keep the entitled on top and the lower class in its place. He's making statements about human nature and the inevitability of corruption, which we can just then accept or we can strive to overcome. There are some really great themes woven together to create this exceptionally enjoyable science fiction tale. And the best aspects of the science fiction? Well, if you're still listening, you've read this book, so you know it. We eventually discover they're all in a dream intentionally created because they're on a ship traveling hundreds of years from Earth. A planet that is doomed and spoiled, ruined by humanity. So this is a ship of colonists that were heading off to another planet that was discovered and determined would be hospitable for human life. And they're going to have a fresh start. This shuttle, this spaceship, this space ferry, this whole project is led by Proctor Bennett, the real Proctor Bennett. And Proctor has sold this whole idea to a whole bunch of rich people who can pony up the money because this is going to take trillions and trillions of dollars. So the vast majority of the people on this ship are colonists who volunteered. They get a chance to get off Earth and start again. A small number are the people who funded all of it, who get a free ride to someplace better rather than stay on Earth and pay the consequences for all their decisions over time. I mean, they're the class of people who basically ruin the world. The details that we learn about all of this, again, they're delightful and they do make sense. And they're just so rich. This is such a great story. I love the twist of arrival and how, in the dream you've got arrivalists, which is really flowing from the fact that in the real world, they're looking forward to arriving at this planet. And of course, then you've got the issue that they really arrived here over 100 years ago at the point that we get this story. And they're still in the dream instead, while the ship is just orbiting the new planet, because the first person who's supposed to wake up, when he woke up, he discovered the planet's in an ice age. It's not the beautiful place they thought it was going to be. There are issues here. And he's like, ah. So he woke up just a few key people, not Proctor Bennett, but some of the other movers and shakers behind this whole operation, some of the big money players. And they kind of made a decision. They call an audible. And basically, everybody stays in the dream. But the dream is not what it was supposed to be. This was not supposed to be this place with the rich and famous having everything wonderful, and everybody else, the colonists, being the worker class that just takes care of them hand and foot. So they've twisted things to have this perfect place to stay rather than having to go down to this ice age planet that's not all that it was sold to be. The biggest twist, however, of this book, and part of the greatest mystery of the story, was the bit about the girl Chaley. I found it fascinatingly tragic that we learn Proctor and Elise on Earth have this young daughter who dies. She drowns shortly before the departure from Earth. And how, with Elise as the one this whole dream system has been programmed to function with, she has to go on this thing. And okay, to back up, they learned that when people tried to do cryostasis in the past and travel long journeys, they end up, if it's super long, waking up basically mad, insane, crazy, because they run out of dreams. So what they've designed instead, they all will be inside one person's dream. This person is the architect of the world, and everybody in it is contributing. So you're creating real memories, real decisions, real activities, even though it's all in a dream world. Elise is the one hosting the dream, but things don't go entirely properly, even from the beginning in this dream world, because Elise is a broken woman, having lost her daughter in a drowning accident. I mean, she didn't even want to go anymore, and they drugged her and forced her onto the ship. Proctor was not going to leave his wife behind, but also they really designed the whole thing on her. He's the backup template. He could be the one to be the new designer, the architect of the dream, but it would take time to reset for him, and well, things get explosively out of control at the end. They have to go when they do. There's no time to reset for Proctor. So Elise is the one in here, and that causes the weaknesses in the dream, and even how they're able to take advantage of it, the doctor and these other few rich people, because she's not entirely well. At the point of the book, they're actually working to try to remove her, eliminate her as the architect, because these few people who had been out of the dream and are back in the dream, they know it's a dream. These people know exactly what they're doing. And so the way they're trying to manipulate things and remove Elise and Proctor and these few others who are the good guys, they're trying to remove them out of the way so they can have everything be beautiful and wonderful all the time. I mean, that twist was dark, was amazing, was so much fun to discover what's really going on in the story. And then how the book ends. You know, we've got most of the colonists now awakened and settling on this new planet. It's not quite what they thought it was going to be, but it's perfectly survivable. They're going to make it here. It's going to be a wonderful restart. But Proctor isn't going to be one of those. Nor are all the rich people, the ones who just have had such a wonderful time on this Prospera island. Nope, Proctor and his wife Elise, who he's keeping in the sleeping state, he decides he will take them back to Earth. All still asleep, but now in a different dream. A dream that Proctor will be the one to intentionally design and create. And so we get to see that as the story ends. That was fantastic. Proctor and Elise now, when Proctor is in the dream, he doesn't know he's dreaming anymore. This is real to them now. He and Elise have their daughter back. They have Chaley, and she's growing up with them, and they have the life that had been taken away by that tragic accident. But all these other people, these rich people, this isn't a punishment for them. This is just a new reality. And they're all living out perfectly fine lives. But now they're all working for their livings. No one has this entitled country club estate anymore. Basically, this is the real world now. And Proctor has set it up that everybody can kind of get back on an even keel and learn what it means to contribute to society, to be good people to each other, to have a good civilization. And eventually they're going to make it back to Earth. And we don't know how this is going to work out, but in theory, they'll wake up again and be better people. And maybe Earth is not quite so bad anymore, because by that time it's going to be like 600 years after they had left Earth. Earth, too, might have had a reset. Here's hoping. And if not, well, they had all this time on this dream place now where time actually goes a lot faster. We learned that dream time is a lot faster. So they'll have had a long time living in the dream, and that'll be good enough if that's all they get. So that's it. Tell me what you think about the book. Put it down in the comments. I really like the book. I haven't looked a lot at reviews. I just kind of glimpsed out there. What do people think? And most people seem to think this is a really good book, but there are naysayers out there. There's always naysayers. I'm just not one of them. I enjoyed The Ferryman. I'd recommend it to anybody. I'd love to hear if you agree. And if you don't, why not? But that's where I'll leave you now. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.